The psalmist reminds us that we should taste and see the goodness of the Lord. And so I ask myself, what does it mean to taste and see God's goodness? And one aspect of my reflection upon that question comes down to, well, what do other people taste and see of the Lord in my life? How does my life reflect the goodness of God to others? And now I'm going to move away from my life and generalize it and say, how do our lives allow people, those who don't know us, those who come from afar, those who may just be visiting St. Benedict Parish today for one reason or another, how do our lives taste and reflect the goodness of God to them? And that's a question each one of us has to ask in the depths of our hearts. St. Benedict was very big on welcoming the stranger. The whole thing of hospitality, welcoming the stranger, welcoming the person who is in need, welcoming those who are less fortunate than ourselves. And so we can ask ourselves, how does my life reflect that? How do I welcome the stranger? What does the stranger taste in my life? We can measure all the things that we do. These days we're a measuring society. There's a key performance indicator for this and a plan to change or to shift the focus of that ministry or that aspect of our company or whatever it might be. What is the key performance indicator when it comes to tasting and seeing the goodness of God? What's the best measure for how we are doing in our faith lives? And I think actually the answer is really, really simple. The best measure of discipleship is the degree to which we love one another, the degree to which we love the Lord. Maybe love is a difficult thing to measure because it can be so focused in upon the individual, can be so can't be captured in too many generalities because we have to get specific with our own lives. What does it mean for me to love my neighbor? What does it mean for me to love the Lord? And then what does it mean for us in St. Benedict to love the Lord? And I think that's where our reflection must be rooted. We can look at all sorts of key performance indicators, or KPIs for short. We can have 101 programs. But as Paul says in his letter to the Corinthians, if we are without love, we are nothing. We are an empty gong. We are cymbals clashing. We make a lot of noise, but we're not producing the one thing that matters, and that is love of God and love of our neighbor. So often when Jesus is challenged in the Gospels, today we are supposed to read the story of the Good Samaritan. You know that very famous question, who is my neighbor? And Jesus basically says, everybody's your neighbor. Benedict would say exactly the same thing. Who's my neighbor? Everybody's your neighbor. We are called to love everyone. We are called to have concern for everyone. Obviously, we can't solve everyone's problems. But then the question is, what can I do? What should I do? And so as we celebrate Saint Benedict, as we celebrate God's goodness to us, let us be committed to reflecting upon the question of how am I growing in love of God and growing in love of my neighbor? What do I need to do to grow in love? What do I need to do to grow in love? Because it's all very well to spend time before the Blessed Sacrament. That might be love of God. But somewhere, somehow, our prayers, our devotions, our liturgies, our ministries need to translate into that most practical of all things, the love of one another, the love of the people around us. So let us pray that the community here in Saint Benedict is known for its love, its acceptance, its hospitality, its welcoming of the stranger, because that's the beginning of love. And then as we get to know one another, as we work with one another over the years, our love will deepen, not just our love for each other, but our love for the Lord as well. Let us pray that when people visit Saint Benedict, when they visit your families, when they visit you, that they will be able to taste and see the goodness of the Lord, because you love God and you love one another.